I don't know if Ben Franklin's writings are still read in our schools. I think I read them in high school, but my memory is dim. Maybe that is not why I never completely imbibed the spirit of deferred gratification. I remember cashing in a whole life insurance policy in my mid-20s to finance law school and thinking that it might be a mistake. My uncles and aunts on my father's side of the family, Calvinist Presbyterians all, were always urging me to take any spare money that I had and invest it in the stock market. But I am, by nature, much closer to the grasshopper than the ant, and would always rather spend a fine day fiddling than going over my portfolio. Had I played my cards right, I might be out there among you retirees by now instead of preaching sermons on thrift. I don't know about you, but I find the work ethic quite alive and healthy in America today. Certainly compared to the countries who were ahead of us on that list, we work harder. Most Europeans considered it inalienable right to take a month's vacation and to work a 35-hour week and have free health care from the government. And particularly is that true for the Scandinavian countries, which topped the Newsweek list. I don't think they got to the top of the heap by working harder. I think they got there by being smaller. If you look at the interactive website for the Newsweek ranking, you can sort the countries on the list by population size. Of the 10 countries ahead of us on the list, 7 are in the small category, that is less than 20 million population. These are the Scandinavian countries and Luxembourg, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Besides being small in population, all of these except Switzerland are ethnically homogeneous, and we might argue that Switzerland is too, despite its 3 language families. Of the medium-sized countries, those between 20 and 50 million population, only 2, Canada and Australia, are above us on the list. Of the large countries, with over 50 million population, the only one above the U.S. is Japan, and there are many below, such as Germany, the UK, France, and Italy. In other words, we're only number 11 because the list compares apples to oranges. But at a deeper level, I am skeptical of Friedman's conclusion that the problem with the United States is a crisis in values. It sounds a little too much like the criticism I've been hearing all my life. In the 60s, my allegiance was with the counterculture, and we thought we were fomenting a youth revolution against middle-class values, one part of which was the Protestant work ethic. My father was always trying to talk to me about discipline, and I would listen respectfully and then go read some poetry, which extolled me to stop and smell the daisies. We hippies didn't invent instant gratification, but we certainly tried to give it respectful philosophical coloration. Do it now. Do what feels good. Free love. Why don't we just do it in the road? And our parents all said, the kids today, they don't know the value of work, the value of sacrifice. But it was not just the counterculture. The larger forces of commercial capitalism were also pushing instant gratification. The whole structure of commercial advertising was geared toward selling us products we didn't need on the premise that they were the path to happiness. Buy new white rain shampoo tonight, and tomorrow your hair will be sunshine bright. While we counterculture types liked our gratification sooner rather than later, we were also skeptical that nirvana could be achieved through the purchase of products. Commercial advertising grew with the expansion of entertainment, particularly television. Television was a medium which had the capacity to inform and to entertain, but over the years, under the steady pressure of getting good ratings, the informing function has been shouldered aside by the entertaining function, to the point where most news organizations are mere appendages of the sitcoms and variety shows on most networks. When personal computers came along, most of us first saw them as business tools, as the large mainframes had been. The internet first offered the promise of unparalleled access to information and communication. It is still that, but entertainment and advertising have made strong inroads there also on the informing and connecting functions. I don't know whether I read Facebook today more for my own amusement or to keep in touch with the people that I know. In other words, I'm skeptical that there has been a substantial erosion of the work ethic, but insofar as there has, I have to acknowledge that the 60s youth counterculture, of which I was a part, stood to some extent for instant gratification, but also was critical of the larger advertising scheme which has sold instant gratification before, during, and after the counterculture, and which I hold principally responsible if there has been an erosion of the work ethic. But let's step back for a moment. Weber's thesis in its day was contrary to Marxism. One critic said it turned Marxism on its head. Weber was saying that an aspect of religion, the Protestant work ethic, was the engine that allowed the economic development they called capitalism. Marx, a generation earlier, had maintained that the economic organization of society is what determines everything else, and that culture and religion just frosting on the top of that layer cake. Most economists would lean toward Marx rather than Weber. Weber's thesis has also not fared very well with the facts. His native Germany shows a patchwork of Protestant and Catholic areas, but there does not seem to be any systematic difference between them in the development of capitalism. But even if you grant Weber's thesis for the purpose of argument, that the Calvinist ethos encouraged the thrift and deferred gratification necessary for capitalism, the subsequent development of capitalism has seen the economic tail wag the spiritual dog. The pursuit of wealth went from a sign of election to an end in itself, and in fact became an object of worship. So the Protestants effected a revolt against the excesses of the Roman Catholic Church. The Calvinist Puritans revolted against the excesses of the Church of England. The early Unitarians and Universalists revolted against the harshness of Calvinist doctrine. The hippies revolted against corporate capitalism in the 60s. What is the next revolt and development? I can't speak for the rest of the country or for today's youth generation, but I don't see either frugality or the work ethic in short supply around here. Our sales arm in this church is called the Thrift Shop, and for good reason. And our sales force pitches in without monetary compensation to work long hours and recycle products which are not advertised on TV or the internet. But the point of Friedman's article really is political. He says the evidence for the values crisis is that American voters want to have their cake and eat it too. And here I think he strikes a little closer to home. He says they have shown a great propensity to vote for politicians who promise to balance the budget and cuts taxes and cut spending at the same time. To me, this is not giving into instant gratification or an abrogation of the Protestant work ethic. It is just magical thinking. I agree that we need politicians who will tell the truth and propose solutions instead of sound bites. But with the sad state of the media and the influence of money, I don't know how we're going to get there. The factor that Friedman doesn't mention, which has been surprisingly absent from the whole economic debate this political season, is John Maynard Keynes. Keynesianism, the idea that government must engage in deficit spending in times of recession, is directly counter to Protestant ethic. It says you must borrow money you don't have in order to spend it, a prescription that would be disaster on the household or personal level. But at the national level, Keynesianism works, as just about all economists who have studied the matter agree. The problem is the residual Protestant ethic among the electorate means that there is not the political support for sustaining Keynesian remedies when the economy takes a severe downturn, as it has in the past 2 years. It is too easy for politicians to start shouting about the deficit, to deflect attention from the fact that the stimulus was insufficient to get us out of the recession. Work is something to value. As Marge Piercy says, the pitcher cries for water to carry and a person for work that is real. A good life balances work and pleasure and knows that what is most worthwhile is often most worth waiting for. We have our work cut out for us to restore some sanity and realistic thinking in the public arena. Let us roll up our sleeves. Amen.